Welcome to the Monday, August 11th meeting of the Morongo Basin Municipal Advisory Council. Thanks for coming. If we could, before any other business, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Colorado, would you care to lead us again?
Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. When you say your name, could you say where you're from? What community?
Yes. I'll call the roll call, and as I mention your name, please tell us the community that you're representing. Dugan? Carmen?
Here, Yakanesa.
Lundquist?
Near Joshua Tree.
Lipsitz?
Near Landers.
Surratt?
Here, Morongo Valley.
Rossi, Wonder Valley? Here. Tuttle?
Here, Copper Mountain Mesa.
Parrott? Absent. Absent. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rossi. And now for the adoption of the agenda, if there are any changes. There is one change, and that is no one from the California Highway Patrol will be presenting tonight. PIO Officer Joan Griffin is out of town, and new Chief Eric Robles had his hands full today. Unless there are any other changes, we will adopt the agenda. Okay, it stands. And approval of the minutes from the meeting of July 14th, 2014. Everybody's had a chance to look over those. And if, for the public here, if you have not seen them, there are copies here on the table right as you come in where no one is required to sign in. If you sign in, it means I'm going to put your name on the email list so that you know that is what it is. It's not really attendance, it's more of a sign up. Next to that sign-in sheet are cards for speakers. So if you have something to say tonight, either an item on the agenda or not on the agenda, please fill out a card if you would, and feel free to go and pick one of those up anytime and drop them off here at the table so we know who you are and to leave time for you to speak. Any changes on the agenda? I'm sorry, on the minutes? Okay, so they stand. And now is a call for public comment. And that would be I don't see a subject, Joshua Tree update, thank you. It's David Fick. Hi, would you like to take the podium and let us hear from you? Thanks.
Hello, is this on? This power? Oh, the hand light. This one? This one works? Hello? Now, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, well. David Fick, Joshua Tree. I was wanting to just volunteer what informal information we have on the Dollar General battle, and that is that the judge has returned to his bench. He had medical leave up until about 2 weeks ago. And so the process now is that he will finally put out his writ of judgment, which has been back and forth between our lawyer group. Okay, well, I'll just.
Hold it closer.
This is for future generations we're working on here. So, okay. Anyway, this works. This works. This is a what $40,000 audio system. Okay, we needed to have it audited. So right now the writ of judgment hasn't been put out by the judge yet. And when he does, then the 60-day appeal period comes in. And that's when we find out whether the county, which doesn't do too much in this case as far as decision-making goes, but the proponent, who is Dollar General Dynamic Development, they will decide if they want to appeal the decision by the judge to have an EIR. If they do not appeal it, then it goes to The county, well, then they decide whether or not they want to do an EIR. And if they do an EIR, then the county decides who does it. Then they put it out for bid, and then they accept the bid, and then they start the EIR, and then they do a draft EIR, and then they do a final EIR, and then it probably goes to court again. So just, that's what's going on. I just want to let people know on what's going on with that. So it's not in complete limbo yet. It's strudling along. That's it.
Any other public comments? Thank you, David. Okay, so moving along, we have public safety reports. And first, if we could hear from Lieutenant Russell Wilkie from the Morongo Basin Sheriff Station, filling in for Dale Mondary, who's on vacation, or who's away. I don't know if he's on vacation. Oh, good.
Well, I'll try to talk loud. Is that will that work?
Here you go.
Oh, okay.
Pretty busy.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad to be back. It's been a couple months since I've been able to be here. The captain's been attending the meetings. Like you said, he's on vacation. I think last time I talked to him was in Canada. So he's supposed to be back next week. What I wanted to talk about tonight are two things. One that everyone's aware of, burglaries throughout all of the areas seem to be a problem up here. We've run a couple special programs in the last month where we put extra people out and tried to target that problem. As a result of that, we made some pretty good arrests. And as a result of that, we've been clearing up some of these burglaries that have happened in the past. So that's really positive. It takes a lot of work and extra manpower, but we were able to put it together and make it happen. The other thing I wanted to talk about is to remind everybody school's going to start again soon. And we all know that, but we forget. And so please, when you're driving around, watch for the kids. You know where the school areas are. The traffic's going to be congested. Some people are returning. Some children, it's the first time the parents have ever even been there, so it gets hectic, and we don't want to have anyone hurt in those areas. So please be careful of that and remind your friends and neighbors of that as well. I didn't really have anything else to discuss unless anyone had questions.
That's very short. We'll tell Captain Mondary how short that was.
Well, Captain Mondary likes to talk. Sure.
And I know that it's usually a CHP thing, but I'm certain that you can answer it.
I'll try.
Is in front of the schools and the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit sign when children are present. Would you define that? Is that, what does it mean?
When children are, it would be from the morning, early, let's say 6:30 in the morning until school's closed and people are gone from there. When the children are present, loading, unloading, crossing the streets during the heavy congested hours.
When, like, during,
not at midnight, obviously.
Well, okay, good. And like what around like maybe 11 o'clock, 10, 11 o'clock in the morning when you don't see children in the schoolyard, you know they're in their classrooms and the light is still flashing. Is it 25 miles an hour then?
Yes, if they're at the school, then they're present.
Okay, well, I didn't know present meant you had to see them or not. I mean, in front of the Joshua Tree Elementary School.
Yeah, no, because you could have, while school's going on, let's say, you could have a child who decides to get up and leave and he could head out into the street.
Right. So the light, when the light flashes, that means they're present and it's 25 miles an hour.
Yes, ma'am.
Period. Okay, good.
Yes, sir.
Speaking of speed limits, what is the speed limit on dirt roads?
The speed limit on the dirt roads is that speed which would be safe to drive on that dirt road. It's a prima facie speed limit. So if it's a dirt road, 90 miles an hour is not safe to do so. Maybe 50 is, maybe on other dirt roads it would be 25. It depends on the circumstances for the road. After a heavy rain, let's say, and we've had a lot of erosion, that changes again. So it's whatever speed is safe to be traveling on that road, prima facie speed. Yes, ma'am.
Does that prima facie include the fact that it might be a neighborhood in the area and that there would be kids running in and out, or?
Those things should all be taken into consideration because on a dirt road, you don't have the same coefficient of friction on the roadway. So if a child did run out and you had to stop, you're not going to stop as successfully as you would on asphalt. So those things are all taken into consideration when you're Yes. Yes, sir.
Back in my days, about 20 years ago, I was complaining, I'm on dirt road, Sullivan, and there was a car going by, or the truck, an old truck going by about 65, 70 on a dirt road, and had to do that. And I I called in about it, and they said, oh, it's 55 miles per hour is the speed limit. And they didn't say about the safe thing. They eventually did something, doing their suspension, and it was gone for a while. But hopefully the two-way street, because they were driving dangerous.
Yeah, when we're out there, when I work patrol once upon a time, whatever seems, common sense kicks in a little bit there too, The speeds, if the speed is obviously unsafe, 75, 80 miles an hour on a dirt road, in my opinion, is probably not going to be safe ever. You need to be responsible while you're driving so that you don't hurt anyone who lives in the neighborhood. A lot of people live in those areas. Or you could have livestock loose in the area, or any number of things that could go wrong. So yeah, I agree with you, and that's not a reasonable speed to be traveling on a dirt road.
One other question on speed limits, and correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't the vehicle code indicate that on streets that are unmarked with a mile per hour limit, that the law states that is 55 unless there are more than 16 homes per quarter mile?
That's a good question, and I don't know the answer to that. I'm going to have to research that and find out. I don't know.
It used to be that.
It may very well still be that, but I'm not familiar with that.
Okay.
They may designate them, and they do with many of them, at 55 miles an hour, which again, in the middle of the summertime, that might be okay.
That was not posted.
You're correct.
Okay.
But there are times when even that would not be safe. If you had heavy rains or the road was, a lot of erosion had taken place, there's a lot of things to consider.
Yeah, there you go. I'm sure everybody's wondering about the burglary report. Is there any particular concentrated areas that have been burglarized?
What happens with the burglaries is a lot of times people aren't even from the area that are up burglarizing places. So you'll get hit with a spree of that, and it'll happen all over the place. And then you'll make an arrest and you catch someone on that. And if you work that correctly, you can spin that in another direction, and you find someone else, and you find someone else, and then you'll end up clearing a dozen or 2 dozen of those burglaries. So for every one of those that you can apprehend somebody and travel down that road, it's very successful. The problem is, because those areas are spread out and some of these areas are real rural, how do you target one particular area? I mean, you can look for statistics to see what areas are hit more than others, but sometimes it's kind of in a shotgun pattern all over the map. So you have to put some other resources out there, and you start trying to target those areas that you expect to have problems, and if you're successful, then you come up with somebody and you work from there. That's how we worked at one of the people in the audience here, when we had the mail theft was going on real bad. We put people out like that and got lucky in the middle of that and caught someone in the act. From that, we cleared hundreds of cases of mail theft. So they get ahead of us for a little while, and then we catch up and get a hold of them and stave it off, and then we go at it again in another few months, it seems like. Yes, ma'am.
One more question. If you live on a dirt road and there's housing and kids there, if you post a sign or someone in that neighborhood says, please slow down, children present, if that person or a person is driving at a speed that could get them a ticket, is that considered like they were warned that they need to drive slower because there's...
Not really. Your sign that you would post really doesn't carry any kind of effect like that, no. I want to back up too. When I talked about prima facie and what's safe, that applies to the paved roads too. If the speed limit's 65 but it's pouring rain, 65 may not be wise, and you should be traveling 40 or 35 or whatever it may be. And we can enforce the law that way regardless of what the posted speed limit is. If the situation dictates that that's unsafe, then we can take action on it. Anything else?
Doesn't seem so. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Did you want
Could
this?
you leave that on the podium there? Or?
Okay.
Thank you. And now we'd like to hear from San Bernardino County Fire Battalion Chief Tom Marshall. Thanks for coming, Tom.
Thank you. Well, I'm glad that the lieutenant got all the tough questions. Hopefully those are out of the way now. So, first of all, I'm here tonight on behalf of Chief Benfield, your division chief for the South Desert Division. He wanted me to come here tonight so that I can introduce myself to all of you and make my presence known. I'm the new battalion chief that's in the area. I'm from the high desert. I'm a desert guy. I was honorably discharged from the United States Marine Corps just down the road here quite a few years ago, but that's okay. I'll give you some statistics for all of your areas if you'd like. I think we have two microphones on here.
Yeah, that one's working out, so.
This is so loud, it's painful to sit here.
Yeah.
That means I'm deaf because I think it's perfect.
I don't really need a microphone, so it might be a little bit more pleasurable for everybody.
You need one mic for the television.
Okay.
That's a TV mic.
Okay, I'll stand closer to it, but try to get that level down. I was being bothered myself. So for Station 19 in Wonder Valley, they ran a total of 10 calls last month. 6 of those were EMS calls, 1 of those was service calls, and then 3 good intent calls. For Station 36 here in Joshua Tree, they ran a total of 122 calls for the month. 3 fires, 2 rupture explosions, 79 EMS calls, 14 service calls, 20 good intent calls, and 4 false calls. For Station 41 in downtown Yucca Valley, they ran a total of 297 calls. 203 of those were medical related, and I'll skip over the rest of theirs. Station 42 up in Yucca Mesa, I know we have a representative here tonight. They ran a total of 83 calls for the month. 1 fire, 1 rupture explosion, 64 medical aids, 8 service calls, 8 good intent calls, and 1 false call. Station 45, Wonder Valley, total of 36 calls for the month. 1 fire, 15 EMS, 2 hazardous condition calls, 3 service calls, and 15 good intent calls. And I believe that covers everybody's areas, correct? Did I leave anybody out? Well, I'm right on the money. I'm right on the money tonight. Back to for the month, we really want to stress to everybody that although that we just received some rain for the past couple of months, our fuel conditions are still at critical states throughout the state of California. What we monitor for fuel conditions and wildland fire growth and brush fires, those kind of things, when you're talking about the grass and the vegetation, is the live fuel moistures. Live fuel moistures, however, are not affected by short-term rain. Short-term rain in the summer gives us very minimal relief. It will sometimes be only 1 day of relief that we will receive. So we remind everybody to continue making sure that your property clearance, clearing that vegetation away from your structures, is still your best avenue to protect yourself. So as we get further into the season, the live fuel moistures are going to go down even more. The further we go on through the summer, it's going to get more critical and more critical. And along with that becomes critical drawdowns. Resources leave your local areas to assist other areas with their fires. Right now, San Bernardino County Fire has a total of 22 fire engines outside of the county. We have them in Oregon, Washington, and Northern California. Myself, I'll be leaving on Thursday, and I'm going to up by Wairika, California on the Klamath National Forest, and I'll be there for probably 14 days. So you'll still have coverage, you'll still have a battalion chief here on duty every day, so that won't be a problem for you. But that's what we're facing. So we try to remind everybody, please maintain your clearances. And that's all I have.
We'd like to take just a quick 5-minute break so we can move these tables out of the way, because next we'll hear from Tim Millington. He's Regional Manager for Special Districts. Did I say that right, Tim?
Yes.
And he has a presentation will go on the screen behind me, so just give us a few minutes.
Out there for on behalf of special districts and other departments in the county. Let's go ahead and hit the next slide. And so the question's always, what is a special district? Why is it called special? And so let's go ahead and hit the next one. In special districts, we administer a number of different things. County service areas, improvement zones, districts which provide municipal type services. And we have the ability to do that under California law. And I want to say there's about 37 different types of service that we can provide. And we provide municipal services in unincorporated areas of the county. If it's incorporated, usually we don't provide a municipal service in that area, but that doesn't mean we can't. We do have some districts that overlie some cities and are within their boundaries that we do provide municipal service to, and I can get into some of those. But right now, currently, Special Districts itself has over 100 special districts within the county. Go ahead, next slide. These services include, like I spoke about, recreation park, landscaping, detention basin, street lighting, road maintenance, television, water, sewer, refuse, cemetery, and dam. But they can also include police protection, fire protection, and a number of other things that aren't listed on the slide there. And so when we have 100 different districts, we're providing all those different types of municipal services. So it could be storm-related, carrying stormwater. It could be detention basins for both large and small projects. It can be dams. We have 2 dams. We have a dam up at Lake Arrowhead, and then we have another dam that we're currently working on in Lake Gregory. Next. Different districts, county service areas, improvement zones. They're all separate legal entities. So what I mean by that is each one of those districts in form has its own fund source, it has its own revenue stream, and it has its own expenditures. We cannot commingle those expenditures. So a road district in Landers is not going to be the same as a road district in Copper Mountain. Although we may have a centralized person go out and provide service into each of those areas, it's still, we do not commingle the funding for each of those areas. And we do develop a budget every year for each and one of those entities that we serve. Next. Districts provide services to meet specific needs within a particular area. Sometimes those needs are roads, like I said. Sometimes they're parks. Sometimes it's street lighting. In most cases, anytime we form a district, it's driven by the public. It means that the public within that area has decided that they want a service, and they drive us to form the district. The district is ultimately formed by the Board of Supervisors, but that's only after the public has voted, to form the district. Then it goes before the board, and then the board approves the formation of the district. But in those different specific services, they can be combined or they can be a singular service. Out here, when we formed CSA 20 originally, it included park and rec, it included street light service, and it included fire protection. Since fire protection has kind of broken off, and they actually did a combined fire reorg just a couple years ago that was approved by both the voters and the board. And then right now, the 2 services we provide are park and rec here in CSA 20 and street lighting. So they're formed and governed by the Board of Supervisors and administered by the Special Districts Department. One of the reasons why we're the umbrella agency is because we're special. And we have a number of things that we can do within our department and provide these services. Other departments, such as regional parks, you could actually conceivably give CSA 20 to the Regional Parks Department, but then it would no longer become a real local service. It would be administered from afar versus now all of our employees here for CSA 20 reside in the building, with the exception of me, administrator manager, who comes and goes. Next. How are services provided and financed? Districts are financed through several methods, including assessments, special taxes, parcel charges, or user fees. User fees, water districts, right? Water districts, refuse districts, sewer districts are user fee based. They still have to go out, and based on Prop 218, they provide notices whenever there are rate increases. The people that are paying for those services within that district do have the ability to protest those rate increases. But you have to have a substantial amount of people to overturn that rate increase, and that would be 50 plus 1. So 50% of your customers plus one more would have to say, we don't want to see the rate increase. The danger in doing that is what happens on the special district side if we get that kind of notification from the public. Well, we may not be able to provide the service. So we may end up having to, not put in new piping, and you end up having water leaks in the piping. We may not be able to install a new well, and then you don't have water service. There's a number of things that we can still do to adjust your service level, but by doing that, in a water district, we're governed by state law and the requirements of water quality and different things like that. We have no choice in certain circumstances to raise the rates in response to having to filter or do chemical treatment of water. So, water sewer services, like I talked about, financed, road, street lighting, and park utilization. Park utilization goes both ways. We end up having a fee schedule that's related to use of the building or use of outside facilities. But for the general part of just having the park available, that's paid through property taxes normally. So, but above and beyond that, as managers of the district, we do institute fees for use. And what that does is it helps us reserve some of the money for other important things, but then those are benefit-related uses. Somebody comes in and has a wedding within this building, we don't want to give that away for free because the benefit isn't to the entirety of the public, it's to the members of the wedding party. In this case, we're holding a municipal, meeting here in this building. Well, we're not going to charge a municipal building because it's a general benefit to the entire community. And then parcel charges, special tax. Parcel charges, usually we do that in road districts. And we have we have a number of road districts, but when we do a parcel charge, it's related to the service level that they want. If the service level got put in, say in the 1990s, it never had an inflationary factor built in to escalate for inflation, what happens to that service since that time? It'd have to decrease, right? It's the only option you have because the value of your dollar has gone down significantly. So some people will give us a call and say, hey, my district's been here since the 90s, and you guys used to be able to plow all the roads, and now you're down to plowing the roads, once every 2 months. What happened? Well, the reality is what happened to the value of the dollar in that period of time? It went down. So what happened to the service level? Each time we have to adjust it annually based on that budget. So a lot of times we'll go back out to the public and we'll ask for an increase to the service charge, and we'll ask for a inflationary factor to be instituted. And the inflationary factor allows us to continue to keep pace with the cost of those services. Let's go to the next one. How are the districts formed? Property owners request a service to be provided in their area. Stop there. And part of what happens in this is we may get a number of community members, and it could start as 1 or 2 within the community, and then all of a sudden those 1 or 2 put out a petition to their local neighbors saying, hey, when'd you want your dirt road paved? Or when'd you want your dirt road graded periodically? And they go, yeah, my tractor's wearing out. I've been taking it out there on my own for the past 10 years trying to keep, this up for everybody. And so then they gather, they get together, they put out a petition, then they provide us a copy of the petition, say, look at all these people we have that are willing to form a district out here for road maintenance. So we take the petition, we go back to the supervisor's office, and we say, look at all these people out here wanting to form a district. But the reality is that from that petition, we do what's called a survey. And so we identify every property owner that would be in that district. We start to pencil out some district boundaries, and then we would survey all of those people within that area. Once the survey comes back, if it's a positive survey, then we would go to what's called an election. After the election, that's when the district would be formed. If at any point during that process, we don't think or we do not get the votes, then the district dies at that point in time. So the only time that doesn't happen normally is in the survey, because you could get 60% of the returns being positive, and you still don't have the 2/3. But when you go to a vote, guess what happens? That changes, and you end up getting 2/3. But that's just by chance. We would maybe do it if it's a close survey like that. Let's go to the next one. A developer, too, will also be required to do certain things. He may be required to do detention basins anymore within any community development. They're required to take off the first 3/4 of an inch of water, and it's supposed to flow into a detention basin where it's retained. And that's so it doesn't pollute groundwater sources and other things and just go straight into the storm drains and down rivers. And so by flowing that water into a detention basin, then that protects the overall environment. And that's a requirement anymore of a lot of community developments. But when he does that, he can't just go to county flood control and say, here, I'm going to pass off this new detention basin to you. So instead of doing that, he contacts us in special districts, says, hey, I have a requirement of my development to do this. Are you guys able to help me in doing this? How many people own the property at that one time? One, right? Who owns the property? Developer. But he's going to subdivide into maybe 500 lots. Who's going to ultimately pay? The 500 lots, okay? So the developer can form the district on behalf, he's the single owner, and he owns all parcels within this development. Once he does that, is the vote easy? Vote's real easy. For special districts, it's one voter. This happens a bit. But then when he has to disclose that is when he sells the properties. So he's got to say, hey, you're buying a property, and you're going to end up paying on your property tax bill this amount into special districts as your district to maintain this detention basin. And then they understand what it's for. Can they go and petition at that time to get that removed? No, but they will call and they'll try and say, hey, how do I get out of paying this? And we say, you don't. You're not going to get out of paying that. Could he go around to all of his neighbors and say, I don't want to pay that? You know, and get them all to sign a petition? Potentially could, 50% plus one. But then if we, as a special districts, are dissolved, who has to maintain that then? They do. Yeah, those property owners still have a requirement of maintaining that basin. So, and this happens all the time too. It's real common in, you could look at a special district similar to a homeowners association, okay? So homeowners associations are formed just because of this reason. It's the same type of thing. So instead of a special district being formed, a lot of developers may prefer to form a community group or homeowners association. But what happens when they have a homeowners association? Well, those members of the homeowners association make rules that govern their neighbors, right? And so sometimes they prefer to do a special district versus a homeowners association because of that overlying governance. The governance being the county board of supervisors versus the governance being, you know, Tom, Dick, Harry, Jane, in regards to them telling you when you can plant a tree, if you can plant a tree, the type of tree planted, or any of those other things. So, but that's development of the financial mechanism. Pretty much explain that. Let's go to the next one. District boundary, talked about how they're created. Could be developer driven. A lot of times it's driven by, you know, property owners within a specific area. We have a lot of road districts, both in the high desert, low desert, and mountain areas. Some of those in the mountain areas, it's because they do not meet county road standards. And because they don't meet county road standards, they cannot, Public Works cannot put any money, any of the gas tax money, into those roadways. And because they can't do that, what happens to the homeowners that live in that area? They don't have any road maintenance, right? So they're out there having to repair potholes, and then if their road starts wearing out, they have to come up with the money to fix it if they want it fixed. And so we'll do a lot of road districts, both for just singular snow removal and then for road improvement projects. Somebody will come to us, say, hey, our road's all beat up. We don't want to have an annual maintenance charge, but can you help us out by, you know, doing a one-time assessment or assessment over a 5-year period to fund this entire paving project? And we've done that sometimes too, as part of being a special district. So we can do a number of different things, but it is all public driven. Next. We prepare cost analysis for service and determine amount of each parcel and what that payment or finance fee would be for the services provided. Go ahead. An election is conducted of either property owners or registered voters in the area. There's two different ways. If it is a special tax, it goes registered voters. If it is a special assessment, it can go either registered voters or property owners. Registered voters, 2/3. Okay? Property owners, there's usually, I want to say it's 50 plus 1, but it's very difficult on property owners a lot of times. And the reason it's so difficult, say out here you have a road district, what do you have? You have a lot of parcels, right? And they're vacant, all right? Do you think those vacant homeowner, or well, they aren't homeowners, vacant parcel owners care about you getting a road up to your house? Not necessarily. They just own that property, but they're going to leave it vacant for 10 years. They don't care if the road's there or not, right? They definitely don't want to pay for it. So if you tried to do a property owner in some of those instances, it would get voted down rather easily. And so registered voters, although it may require 2/3, they're more the property members that are in the community, aren't they? They're the ones that do the voting. They're the ones that are going to benefit from this area if they can have it become a special district. So, if the election is successful, we go back to the County Board of Supervisors and we request that the district be formed. And then it's a board action that they will take in here at the county board meeting, and they'll either approve or they'll deny formation. And that's pretty much how it works. One of those that's currently going to be going before the County Board of Supervisors on the 19th is the Wonder Valley. Anybody here from Wonder Valley? And I'll answer any questions you have regarding that at the very end. But that's a unique one where it is forming a zone within an already zone. So County Service Area 70 covers the entirety of the county. And so anytime you see something that says CSA 70 on it, just know that that covers the entirety of the county, with the exception of they have individual zones within that entirety. So in Wonder Valley, that was a road district zone within CSA 70. And now it's going to be CSA 70 Wonder Valley, and then it's going to have its zone, and then it's going to have another zone within its zone. And it was just a unique circumstance, the way it was constructed and how it was put together, but it would make sense, you know, once you truly got to look at it. So, and I think that's pretty much it for my presentation. I'll give you a little, you know, background on districts. You're welcome to ask me any questions. Let me go into this. Why elections required? I think I hit most of it, but I'll speed through these. 1997, Prop 218, everybody's heard of that. Right to vote on taxes passed. Election must be passed of any new tax or tax increase based on Prop 218. over 70% of the districts administered by special districts are funded by special assessments placed on property tax bill versus service charges, right, that can be, don't necessarily have to put on the property tax bill, but they can be a direct curbside service. Water services, sanitation service. What happens if you don't pay your water service bill? Shut off, right? What happens if somebody says, hey, I want to, you know, not have my road district anymore, or I want to do away with it? That's the same type of thing. You know, if we pull out and we're not going to provide that services, you're not going to get magically Public Works to come in and say, hey, we'll do it with our gas tax money, because legally they can't. Their money is already earmarked for specific things, and it has to be roads to the county road standard. And then today, inflationary factor is a big thing. 20 years ago, you thought, hey, we're putting in $9. That should be plenty to get us, you know, all the road maintenance we need for a while. But the second you vote that in without inflationary factor, 3% historically is going to be eroded by inflation. So after 25 years, how much have you eroded? 75%, right? So if you've eroded 75% of your $9, really the amount that you have anymore is about $3 in real-time dollars to provide a service. It's really difficult to do. One more, and that's it. And I'll answer any questions anybody may have that I can answer. If not, I'll bring information back to the next meeting. Let's take one here, Wonder Valley.
Yes. One of the questions that arose is that we understand the concept that if you were to have the property owners vote, then you probably wouldn't pass it.
Right.
Because those people may not live there. But when you have registered voters, you have people who may not be owners, they're renters often, or people who vote, but decide. Now, you usually have a small number of registered voters. In Wonder Valley, there may be under 400 people registered voters. So if you have 400 people voting and they pass it, they have voted for a tax increase on everybody. And so the question is, and this is what I have heard in the community, where is the fairness in that, in having 372 people vote and pass an ordinance or new tax that everybody has to pay, and they do not have a chance to vote?
I would ask who's asking the question. Is it an actual registered voter? More likely it's not.
I know, registered voter.
Yeah. So, and then the next thing is it somebody who lives in the area, or is it a vacant parcel? Do they have ownership in the area or outside the area? Meaning they don't reside on the property.
But they would have to pay for that.
But my point would be is your registered voters is a good measuring stick for the process. You know, because the true benefit are those people that live in, for the people in the area. I would not want people outside my area making decisions for me, as I'd never get anywhere.
And that point is well taken.
Yeah, and that's really, could you go both ways? Sometimes you can't, and it's because of the way the district was formed. Remember I talked about a special tax? A special tax, if it was instituted by registered voters originally, and in the Wonder Valley situation it was, and they go back out to Wonder Valley, they want the registered voters again to be voting on that versus the opposite.
Now, we received an interesting letter from the supervisor, saying that there will be an opportunity for people to vote and get to protest the vote. And now you can send this letter back, and I think that everyone received that. And I think it said that if enough people write back and protest, that the whole election or voting can be annulled. And I think that Rebecca Unger had a copy of the letter.
Yeah, I'd have to look at the copy of the letter. But my understanding is the people that have the ability to protest are only registered voters. So now you would have to get 50% plus one of the registered voters to protest. But the likelihood of that is very small, given you just did a tax election with who? Registered voters.
And it was a very tight.
Yeah.
Because the majority did not vote. Now, understand,
Uh,
I'm not trying to.
Yeah, I know.
Against it. I'm explaining to some of the, I'm the representative group.
Right, I understand.
I'm not against what happened. I'm seeking clarification because I think out of 372 people who voted, I mean, who were eligible to vote, only 97 voted. So the majority did not vote.
Hey, that happens all the time. Presidential elections, state elections, you name it, right? If you look at any election across the board, that happens. You usually, I mean, in cases where we've done elections like this, 30% is very common. And those 30% people of the returns, of the total people that could, they're the ones making the decision. Happens all the time.
Final comment. The 97 people who voted have instituted a tax for the 3,000 parcel owners. And so that's
Right.
the point.
Right.
So I'm not against it. I'm seeking clarification
Yeah.
for the process.
It's all done within special districts law. And those are the options. So in this case, it was registered voter option. You would have to get 50%, but are you trying to get 50% of 96 that voted? No, you have to get 50% of the 300 and some registered voters in order to protest. So that's a lot. A lot of times too in elections, people are indifferent. You know, some will feel real strongly about it, you know, one way or another. The indifferent ones are the 70% that didn't vote, really. You know, they're just kind of going along, what happens, happens, I'm okay with it. And that's what happens. And I don't know how we can change the process to make it better, but we do follow you know, the law on that. And that's what guides it. County council is part of that process all the way through.
Question, okay, I was trying to follow the numbers. 97 voted, there's 380 or so?
Uh-huh.
Okay, now you're saying the protest vote would be 50 plus 1? Is that of registered voters, which means they'd have to have 100 and... 200.
Yeah, they'd have to have half of the registered voters
So
plus
that
one.
means twice as many people to...
Yeah, to overturn it than they actually voted, yeah.
Okay.
Very interesting, isn't it? But that's, you had a question earlier? Or? I'll take one here and then come back.
Redefine CSA 70.
County Service Area 70 is a county-wide special district.
But that's county-wide.
County,
Every place that you walk to.
countywide, meaning its boundary is countywide. That doesn't mean, it's like having a city boundary and a sphere of influence. It doesn't mean the county CSA 70 provides service throughout the county. It means that it has a sphere of influence throughout the county. So we can form an improvement zone anywhere in the county based on CSA 70's overlying umbrella to that. Yeah.
But it includes the
And-
mayor boundary of San Maria.
And exactly, and that's why you'll see different improvement zones formed all over the county under CSA 70. Out here, it's County Service Area 20. So County Service Area 20 has its own boundary, but that doesn't mean County Service Area 70 doesn't still overlay the boundary. So, let me go here, Steve.
Jim, I'm a little confused, and it's probably me, but the signs in my area, Copper Mountain, they don't say CSA 70, they say CSA R70. Is it the same gig or, you know, you got me confused. 'Cause
Yeah, I don't-
I'm sitting there going, oh,
yeah.
all this, it's like, no, I don't know nothing.
I think it was whoever put the signs up at the time chose it one way or another. So I probably would have done them CSA 70, R22, R, exactly. Because if you look on the County Special District's website, If you're in one of those districts, it's going to be listed on the county's website, and you can actually get information back from that website. It may tell you numbers of roads that get serviced. It may just be a road listing of number of roadways out there. But there's information that you can get to based on county special districts website.
And Tim, help me, one other, you had mentioned in your presentation about the county can request an inflation increase.
That still has to go back to the voters.
So let's go back up. And is that something the county can instigate, or is that something that people, like in my area, because we're caught in that.
Right.
Everybody's been paying this $22.50 forever.
Right.
And it ain't enough, really.
You know what? We can, with somebody coming forward and saying, hey, we really need to do something like that. And usually we'll hold a meeting, and in some cases, in Steve's case, they used to have a road commission. And they used to have a number of members part of that. I'm just giving a history. And what ends up happening is people fall off the road commission, then the road commission disbands, and then we don't have any active voices out in the community anymore. It's because that indifference some people have, like, hey, everything's going fine now, and, you know, we'll be okay. But it isn't until, you know, Steve makes a point that, hey, we're now, you know, 20 years, 30 years in, and we're not able to get what we wanted originally. He may be one of the only people with the institutional memory regarding that, right? Other people have come and gone out of the area, bought and sold property and stuff like that. And so we still work with the community. We're not going to force the increase on them, but we may suggest it. And then see how they react to it. If they say, hey, yeah, let's go forward. We usually need to have money to do a tax election. It doesn't come for free. Sometimes we have to go back, you know, and ask that you as community members put together a pot of money that allows us to do that if the district doesn't have money. A lot of districts, when we form them, if it's not developer driven, it's driven by community members. We have this on a roadway, it's called Snowdrop Road. We've had to ask them. And so they front the money of a one-time assessment to do an assessment for formation. And once that's done, then they're hoping that ultimately they get a district form for the road service. But there's different ways we can do it. That's why we're special, you know, is because we're going to adjust to what the needs are in the community and try and find a way to help you get service, basically. Take one here, and I'll come back.
I'm curious what is involved to dissolve a district. Specifically, the one that I find very offensive is this television club that only maybe 5% of the people max possibly use, and the other 95% of us subsidize. I realize that district was created way before anyone had ever heard of DirecTV.
Yeah.
It has been suggested to me that it'd be cheaper to put DirecTV on these people's houses that use the TV district, and we'd save tons of money.
Yeah, we're talking about a TV district. It touches Wonder Valley, touches all the way out to Landers. The district, there's 3 districts over the top of that. TV4, TV5, and then there's a separate district in Morongo that provides TV service to the Morongo area itself. Interesting thing is we went and surveyed all the residents in Morongo, every single property out there. And all of the surveys came back as supporting the TV service. Although they said they may not be tapping into that TV service, they did support it. And the reason they support it is they support it for their neighbors, you know, because it was the only service. Why the TV districts were formed is before cable, before satellite TV, before internet. That's the only way to get TV out in these desert areas. And that's why they were formed. You couldn't access Mount Wilson, which was the only, you know, beacon of TV at the time. And so then after that, it was Snow Peak, you know, providing Palm Springs and some of that area. And so that's why the TV club formed. Then the TV club went into being a TV club to wanting to form a district for the same types of reasons I had talked about earlier. It's hard to collect money and get everybody together, and so that's why they came to special districts and did that. So whereas you say maybe not a lot of people, I think there are a lot of people that we don't know, and that's what the survey showed us in Morongo, that there were still a significant number of people in the low to moderate income level that are tying into that service. Some of them had like a second or third TV. So instead of getting multiple boxes within their homes, they were getting one with the Dish Network, and then they were doing a secondary garage TV on pulling it directly off the air. And we saw that a lot in the survey. And that's one of the reasons why they didn't want to say, hey, go ahead and get rid of it. Over the next few years, are other opportunities going to come in? Yeah, and you may see it come back again to where we end up having to look at that TV district or those particular districts as far as what needs to be done. Right now, we went from analog TV to digital. And so picture quality and sound got immensely better, and we're in the process of going from what was a 10-channel makeup in most of our TV districts to a 12 and eventually a 16. When we do that, people weigh, hey, do I want 16 channels, and is that enough, or do I want 300 by DirecTV? Some people are saying 16's enough as long as they're good quality channels. And so that's going to be the interesting part, is with that digital TV, does that change back to saying, hey, people are going to become reliant on those 16 channels of service? I had a question over here. Yes?
Do you actually know the details of the Zone A, Morongo, or Wonder Valley?
Not completely.
Okay, never mind.
But if you had too specific of a question, I wouldn't be able to answer
Well,
it. So.
I keep hearing, okay, special tax, special assessment. You said 70% are probably assessment.
Right.
What is the difference?
Between the
A special tax,
special tax was done by the voters originally, and that's why it went back to the voters again. It was a special tax.
No, just what
Special assessments are usually voted in by property owners initially, and then we would go back to probably property owners to increase those charges again.
Because you're talking about 2/3 registered voter needed.
Versus the other side.
And the Wonder Valley didn't have 2/3 on either side. And now.
They did have 2/3 on the voter. It's
Okay.
2/3 of the return ballots.
Okay, all I know is whatever's published on the special district's website is 58%, not 67.
It's 2/3 of the return ballots were positive.
There's data not out there,
Yeah.
which is causing this problem. So then the second thing is, now they appear to be in a registered voter 50% plus one protest. Is that for formation, or is that for protesting the election?
They would protest
No,
the.
right now, they're in.
Yes, what they would do is they protest the increase and that formation of that new zone within the zone.
But they can do that with 50%, they can get it with less than 50% plus one protest. They can get that assessment. That's what it says.
What do you mean? They can get,
That's why a lot of.
they have to protest, meaning they have to have at least 50% of the total registered voters plus one.
What I understand right now is on August 19th, at the close of that hearing, if they do not have 50% plus one registered voter protest, then that assessment will go through.
That's correct.
Okay, that's not what's kind of been gyrating around in there, because that's not a 2/3 of anything, and it's a vote, it's a vote.
No, because 2/3 was already achieved in the general election.
Okay, then that general election information is not as clear to me. If they have one, fine.
Yeah, they had
So they're
2/3.
protesting the election process.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, and it's not the election process that they're protesting. It's like they're saying, hey, maybe us that weren't registered voters didn't get to vote. But when they look at the people that come in, they'll find that some of the people are protesting aren't even registered voters. And so they will, even though they say, oh yeah, they're going to check, they're going to go right down the registered voter list and say, your name's not on here, I'm sorry. And it's an invalid protest then. I mean, not that they can't protest, they can protest, but it's invalid for, you know, quantity and number.
The purpose of this hearing on August 19th is to decide whether or not this assessment is going to go through, right?
It will ultimately decide, yeah, if you don't receive enough protests or you receive enough
But if I
protests.
understand you correctly, the assessment's already been passed. Now
It's-
in a
It's been passed by vote,
Are you sure it's by vote or by survey?
by vote. Yeah, they were mailed ballots.
All right.
Yeah,
The last question, Ms. Collins.
yes.
Protest is actually based on a number of issues. Excuse me, I'm not a public speaker and I get really nervous. But it's based on the way it was done, the way the survey was used to identify people who were going to oppose this, and they were eliminated by creating this mythical zone A that they were excluded from the voting and consideration. It was, there was a number of other issues, the 2.5%, there was no explanation of 2.5% of what? The total bill, the total tax bill, or the expenses for the driver. There was an $80,000 expense in the budget that covers a driver to go full-time where the area does not need full-time driving. They've already got a driver that's dragging the roads part-time that's doing enough. However, the roads are degenerating. There are berms on the side. Some of that, I believe, is caused by the way they drag the roads, that they're not doing it one side and then the other. They're just going right down the middle, throwing it off to the sides, creating a real problem. My name is Ruth Couch. I'm on your protest list.
Yeah.
If you've got complaints, give me a call.
And it's all part of the process. So, you know, you're within your right to do that.
We sent out lists
Yeah.
based on the, we had our list and we have the stickers, the labels that are going to the property, to the registered voters. We were not allowed to get the registered voters that are in the excluded area that has been disenfranchised.
Mm-hmm.
They no longer have the right to vote on any of this. We were not allowed to send anything out to the property owners. However, the county did send out just a notice that it was done. Voters, property owners are allowed to call and write if they object to the tax. However, they are being excluded, and I did talk to the Board of Supervisors, and based on the requirements for a protest require a precinct number, which we did not have. It was not printed on our list. And I was assured by the Board of Supervisors that we would not be dismissed or excluded because that particular number was not on there, and that they would check those names with the voter registration.
Yeah, that's what they will do. They'll check the names against the voter registrations.
I feel that there was a lot of things that should not have been done,
Yeah.
the way it was handled.
Yeah.
Just simply identifying, using those survey cards to identify people who are going to vote against it. They were excluded. They're not even in the voting. You
Yeah.
had to be registered by the 10th.
Yeah.
Anybody that registered after that cannot be a part of this protest.
The only ones they excluded were around the boundary where they touched a county-maintained roadway.
They were
And
excluded
so
because
they were still within the district as the district was formed, but they actually had county services adjacent to their property because they were on a county-maintained. So that's the reason why they wanted to be removed. And it was more of their choice wanting to be removed from that.
They didn't vote for that.
Yeah.
They did vote to be excluded.
So I don't know. I wasn't part of that.
They were simply excluded because they were identified by the survey cards as being opposed to this.
So it's part of the government process, and I would say, you know, become a part of it. Protesting is part of that. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tim, for coming tonight. Appreciate it. I know we could talk to you for a lot longer, but in the interest of time, we want to come back to an item that was presented last month. It was Highway 247 scenic highway status for the highway, and we received a presentation. We had a few questions that were still open, and now we have Betty Munson and Joanne Wilson have come to. Did I say that wrong? I'm sorry, Joanna Wright. Thank you. Have come to answer the questions that we were asking, and we'll consider another vote. Yeah.
Hello. Hello. Okay, I'm Betty Munson, for anybody that doesn't know me, and Joanna and I come from Johnson Valley, and we're both members of the Homestead Valley Community Council, and the Scenic 247 Committee was formed by the Homestead Valley Community Council. And just a little bit to let you know that the buzz about 247 is spreading. At the Lucerne Valley Economic Development Association meeting last week, Steve Johnson, who's Assemblyman Tim Donnelly's field rep, recommended I call Ray DeSalle, who's Caltrans landscape architect. I had spoken to Ray before, but I took Steve's advice and called him again to confirm that what we were saying in our presentation was actually accurate. And he did confirm what we've been saying all along, and he also knows the route. He's familiar with the highway, which helps a lot. And one of the things we've been saying is county, town, or city codes already promote development that maintains the existing character of the area. Caltrans safety requirements are more stringent than any of the scenic corridor guidelines, and he confirmed that. Mining is governed by the Reclamation Act requirements, and mining certainly is part of the existing character of the area, and it can be a tourist attraction besides, and he confirmed that. BLM restrictions apply to a major part of the route, and he confirmed that. So if anyone asks you, that's from the horse's mouth. Most of that presentation that discussed the scenic requirements was taken straight from the Caltrans Scenic Highway Guidelines. I don't know if you got to see the whole presentation or not, but that's the basis of that presentation. The presentation was designed to go to the county supervisors, and we were just kind of previewing it last month to see what the questions would be. Scenic highway designation brings added revenue from tourism. And this is a proven fact, and one of the reasons that we got into this, because there's not a whole lot of anything else bringing in money from outside of the county. The county is now marketing itself as a mountain and desert outdoor playground. And they've got a website going, and they're marketing to a wide variety of vacationers and recreational travelers and to travel agents. And 3 key destinations that are being marketed and are well known all over the world are the Joshua Tree National Park, Big Bear, and Route 66. And Scenic 247 fits right into this program because it's the only feeder route leading to all 3 of those destinations, plus dozens more. And it goes from the low desert to the high desert to the mountains. Or it goes to highways that do that. And if you're going from, for instance, Palm Springs to Barstow to Route 66, you have to go on 247. And in its own right, it's a very scenic route. We're adding endorsements constantly from organizations and visitor attractions that are in the area. And Supervisor Ramos is very encouraging. And thanks to his field rep for Barstow and Lucerne Valley, who is Bev Lowry, you may know her, the Barstow Chamber of Commerce just sent us a really glowing endorsement letter. And the Lucerne Valley, Johnson Valley MAC endorsed it unanimously last month. The Scenic 247 Committee would be delighted to have the Morongo Basin MAC in the campaign. And that's really all I have to say. If there's any questions, I'll hope to answer.
I did get a chance to read the, I think, 28-page put out by Caltrans. I didn't see it clearly advertised or delineated about the properties and exactly, say a property owner wants to build there and what specifics they have to follow. And you're saying it's just the county codes?
Yes, that's what he says. If the county has a code that, for instance, residential zoning, and so it's got to be a residence. If it's commercial zoning, it's got to be commercial. And all the, whatever requirements are already in place is what you have to pay attention to. I realize that there's no guarantees. The county plan obviously can be gotten around. I mean, people worked really hard on the county plan not all that long ago. It was dated 2007. And we're getting things like the fight over what is it, Dollar General, which to my mind is a no-no from the go. And the same thing is happening in the Lucerne Valley. They're trying to put a Dollar General in there, which is totally out of character with the rural character of the neighborhood, the pioneering character of the neighborhood. And nobody's going to come and see a Dollar General store. And that's really the guidelines for the scenic corridor. And the scenic corridor is anything that is visible from the highway. So that's all.
If an applicant that owned property out there, residential, and wanted to put an application in for a conditional use permit for solar, wind, Dollar General, anything, what's the disposition on the county's
well,
side?
if it's a residential living zone, of course, nobody asks me, but a residential living zone should be for residential living.
Well, that's the problem.
That's exactly the problem, right?
That's the problem. That's exactly the problem. They do issue conditional use permits in residential areas for solar projects.
They were up until the time of the solar moratorium, and supposedly they're going through the general plan now to either make a renewable energy zoning, which of course would have to be with the consent of the people in the area, or
is there any
be more strenuous about what gets built.
Do you have a feeling there's any cooperation on the county with the county that CUP wouldn't be? I mean, it'd be a real fly in the ointment if you had a scenic highway and all of a sudden you had a 300 right at the edge of the highway, a 300-acre solar field.
It would be a self-evident scenic eyesore.
And what is the county's disposition on that, do you know?
Well, the people that we've been talking to are very encouraging, and Caltrans are very encouraging. The one thing we do know, just the very possibility that a scenic corridor could be formed along 247 caused Edison to change their minds about the location of some, I think it was a substation, I don't really know, but it was on the Barstow Road segment north from Lucerne Valley going up to Barstow. And we heard that, we had that information 2 years ago. And granted, we've been taking a very long time getting anything done, but we have been told, okay, just give us the paperwork and we'll take care of it, and it isn't getting taken care of. But now I do believe that, I know that there's county supervisors very interested in it, and I would say that Caltrans, the problem won't be with Caltrans. It'll be with getting because the county has to do stuff. And you know how hard it is to get the county to do stuff. And they may say, yes, they're going to do it, but they may not have the funding for it. But nonetheless, if we get it in the works, that's all we want to do. We want to get this in the works. Because we're going to promote 247, whether it's an official scenic highway or not. We've got an awful lot of people who are very gung-ho about getting people into the area. So there's no harm in us doing it, whether we have an official designation or not. This is the last highway in California that is eligible for scenic highway status. And for some reason or another, it's never been pushed, it's never been taken into the process of getting, the county has to make the application to Caltrans, Caltrans has to approve it, legislation has to be introduced, and, that step never got taken.
Can I interject something? You mentioned residential living. The zone is RL5 and it's rural living, so it includes both residential
Oh, I'm
and...
sorry,
Yes,
yes.
it's rural living.
Rural living.
Which would include both commercial and residential. But from what I understand is if the county would not treat applications any different, land use services would still use the same criteria to judge conditional use permits, and they can grant them. What could happen is that if enough were granted and it interfered with the view shed along the corridor, the scenic status could be removed.
Yes.
So instead of sort of more blocking the development, it's more of a situation where it's coming from the other way.
It's reviewed periodically.
Right.
And I was just wondering what happened to the little poppy signs on Highway 62 going down toward Palm Springs. Do you think the view of the wind turbines had something to do with that? I don't know. I've never heard anybody say why those signs are gone. I know people steal signs off the highway, so it couldn't. And Caltrans might not be replacing them very rapidly.
I don't know.
How far along in the process are you?
Just at the point of still, Caltrans wants to have as much public support for this before it goes into the works, and then we're still gathering organizations and actually a lot of people who are running attractions to endorse the campaign for the Scenic 247. And we're trying to get it, to prove it from one end to the other that there are a lot of people who are in favor of this. Mm-hmm. And before it goes any further, but as official is concerned, we're not official yet. It's not officially in the county's hands yet.
What is the next step that has to happen?
As far as I can tell, it's taking, as I understand it from Land Use Services, it's to have a meeting with county supervisors.
So what you want is a resolution from this MAC to ask Supervisor Ramos.
I don't even say you have to have a resolution. We have that little form that people send in that just says this organization endorses the campaign for having Highway 247 declared as an official scenic highway.
So you just want a letter from
a letter was fine, or just filling out our little form on the website.
Do we do that?
It's in your packet.
Okay.
With your agenda.
Actually, the little letter might have been handed out. It's attached to the mission statement. Did that get handed out?
It was distributed before the last meeting.
Yeah. Okay.
What we have now is a proposed resolution.
Oh, okay, great. A resolution sounds really good. Well, that's it. The Morongo MAC said the same thing. All they said was that we support the Scenic 247 campaign. And then they sent my letter to the MAC along with the accompanying documents to the county. And that was really all that was required.
Are there any other questions from up here? Anyone from the audience like to comment? Dr. Carmen? Sure, so people can hear.
My name is...
Let's hear TV, Mike.
Thank you. My name is Bob Carmen.
It seems to me the way that you're describing that, Mike, that the scenic highway designation is descriptive rather than prescriptive. And what I mean by that, and why I'm bringing this up, is that who knows what the future brings in terms of what developers or what property owners want to do. Windmills, solar farms, science is wonderful. It always changes everything. The question is, if we as the MAC, the people here, endorse this, you're endorsing a description. You're saying, we agree with the visuals we saw last time. This is a scenic thing. I've driven up there a few times, and Elizabeth and I both enjoy it. The question is, what good does that do in the sense of what kind of teeth, if it's not prescriptive in saying we need to preserve this in some way? And so I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Okay, I'll try to answer that. It has no teeth. It does lend our voice to those who would petition the county supervisors to rule, but it doesn't limit any other future activity from the MAC that maybe on another issue that would put us on record opposing large-scale solar development or other types of development that would interfere with that designation. Hi, back there I saw.
I would just think that it would be a good thing if the property owners all are in agreement, which I didn't hear you say anything about property owners. You went to all different property owners and they're like...
We haven't gone to individuals,
Okay.
and we can pass around petitions. In my experience, these petitions are kind of losing their impact.
But my point is that I, as a community person in the MAC here, I'm in favor of it because I don't care if a homeowner puts up an AirX, which is just a little wind generator, but I would be opposed to one of those big mountains out there full of Palm Springs Desert Hot Springs. I don't want it. So yeah, we could. I know it has no teeth, but just to tell the county, hey, we out here don't want to see this. We like what we see now. I would be all in favor.
Mike, may I say something to that? One of the things that the scenic highway designation does is generates and increases the community pride, and it encourages people who are doing the developing to make it fit, make it interesting, make it charming. I feel like there's possibilities of putting in buildings and commercial buildings in commercial zones. We have a very small commercial zone affecting it. But it can be done so it isn't an eyesore in the surrounding areas. And I think people are foolish if they ignore the rural look of things. And I know we don't feel quaint, but they think we're quaint when they come from Japan. And it's really amazing how many people, I bet you every one of us sometime in the last year has run into some non-English speaking person doing something. They're bailing out of a bus to get lunch or something, and they're coming out here to see what's happening in the California desert. I personally don't take it for granted. I came to California in the mid-60s, and practically the first thing I did was come to the desert. And I'm probably a real expert tourist. And there's nothing out there that I wouldn't want to go see. There's no little road out there that I wouldn't want to follow. Now, I understand, if you're on 247, not too many of the roads you get off on, you can't take a townie car out there. But you certainly can go to Route 66, you can certainly go up Highway 18 to Big Bear. And when you look around in Big Bear, look at the development in Big Bear, what does it feel like? It looks like everybody wants to be a Swiss chalet or something, and they fit right in. And the tourists like that. Disneyland does not put in Dollar Generals on Main Street. It just, nobody wants to see that. So I feel like we're missing a gold mine if we don't promote this whole area as much as we possibly can.
Time for 2 more questions. I know Pat Flanagan had you had your hand up.
Actually, I don't have a question, except Betty, you are quick.
Yes.
And it's a wonderful thing. But if you look at, when you fill out CEQA documents, they ask that question, is it a scenic highway? So it does have that kind of a tooth in it. It doesn't tell somebody they can't do something, but it's a value when you're trying to preserve something.
Visual impact is a real thing.
Yeah, so they asked that question. The other thing is, I did ask a realtor after that last meeting, and he said it would help to preserve real estate values. And then also, if you're familiar with the desert access guides from the BLM, and you look at the one for 247, it's pretty much surrounded by BLM land. So it really does make a big difference in terms of what's already there. It's not going to really deprive anybody of anything. It just encourages people to become part of what's there. Because actually, if you didn't do such a good job and it was a business, they might not go to your business. But the fact that you can, if it says, you know, is it a scenic highway, yes or no, that's an important piece.
Yes.
Thank you. One last question or comment from the audience? So, yeah, you would like to make a motion?
Yeah, you want me to make a motion?
Mm-hmm.
I make a motion. That
You can dispense with the reading of the entire.
Morongo Basin Municipal Advisory Council, okay, this resolution, which is resolution number MB-MAC 005.
Second.
We have Mayor Helen Tuttle makes the motion, and second by Gail Swart. And all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so it passed unanimously. We have one absentee.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good. Okay, I know you've been waiting for that. We will send that out accordingly. Moving right along, we're actually going to finish maybe on time this month. Community officer and committee reports, we've rolled all these into one. If we could start down at your end, Mr. Dugan from Pioneer Town.
Thank you. A couple, 3 weeks ago, I guess maybe 5 by now, the chief engineer of the water project for Pioneer Town was replaced. And so representatives of Pioneer Town, including myself, had a meeting with Mike and Chris Carrillo. And we wanted to make sure that the project wasn't going to be derailed, detoured, or changed. And Chris did look into it. I emailed him prior to the meeting, telling him what our concerns were. And apparently the project, at least at today's date, is still on schedule. And being the summertime, things have kind of slowed down a bit, and that's all the news that I've got from Pioneer Town.
Several things have happened. Number one, the neighborhood watch group in the northwest Yucca Mesa has met again, and they're trying to get signs and all that sort of stuff, decide where they're going to put them and figure out their boundaries and this and that. On Saturday, August 10, Bob and I joined the Combined Alliance for Responsible Recreation and Community ORV Watch for their semi-annual board meeting. And they gave various updates on their activities. And the president of that group continues to work with BLM to create more rational trails. As you know, they had some trails that went so far and then it hit a house and then they picked up on the other side of the house. Well, they're working on correcting all of that. And there was a kiosk installed on 247 at Ritchie and 247. And hopefully, I was there, they are hoping to have people stop and look at it. It's got a little roof on it and everything. So anyway, illegal riding still is a concern up there. Illegal riding, and I'm sorry to say, but a lot of damage to property by trucks and what have you. They don't like it when you put up a fence because they go through it. And so anyway, there's some problems. If anybody here lives in the northwest quadrant of Yucca Mesa, come and see me if you want to pick up a sign or something for Neighborhood Watch.
Hey, Mark Lundquist from Joshua Tree. Like Jack said, it's summer, things are a little slow. However, I want to bring you up to date on the land use meeting that we had a couple of months ago for the downtown retail formula. We're still working on a meeting for that. We have people, some of the people that are very interested in it and have some experience around vacation right now. I understand they'll be back in September, and we're still coordinating with the county as to when we're going to have a meeting. And hopefully they can get a representative there, or we will work on something in September, like I say, when people come back. As far as downtown Joshua Tree goes, Second City nights are still going on, or second Saturday nights are still going on. So they have multiple activities every second Saturday of every month. Just check their website, the Chamber of Commerce for Joshua Tree, and it'll give you a list of what they do. It's very interesting and a lot of fun. Thank you.
Rossi from Wonder Valley. Only two prevailing issues will continue to be boiling up in Wonder Valley. One is the roads assessment issue that we discussed earlier. And as you can imagine, there have been a lot of phone calls going back and forth with pro and con the whole issue. But as you know, the matter is coming up for a protest vote. There's also a meeting on August 19th. And I think we talked about that already. The other issue that has been brought to my attention is, as the chief from the Sheriff's Department mentioned, that the concern about burglaries is going up also in Wonder Valley. And burglaries are happening with frequency, and also petty theft. So those two concerns continue to afflict the community. Thank you.
Thank you. From Landers, we continue to work on the dissolution of CSA 70W-1, that's Special Districts Water in Landers, which looks to be, will be assumed by Bighorn Desert View Water Agency. Most of the citizens, in fact, a great supermajority of the citizens, I'd say, are for that move. And so we continue to make progress in that area. Unfortunately, at the thrift store, Landers Thrift Store is now closed until further notice, and except for the special classes that happen over there every week. Many of you know Linda Wilgus, who has been running the thrift store for the last few years. She found out last year she had cancer, and she has been suffering quite a lot with treatment, and isn't able to open the thrift store any longer. So we are in Landers looking for someone who wants to volunteer 2, 3, 4, 5 days a week, pretty much 7, 8 hours a day for no pay. So if any of you are eager to do that, just let me know. We need someone honest and trustworthy, and again, who's willing to make a lot of sacrifice and then suffer in silence. It'd be hard to replace Linda. Changing hats to the chair position, I want to mention that we do have, as you know, an open seat on the MAC, and the supervisor was here last Thursday, conducting interviews, and he conducted interviews of 3 very strong candidates, and we don't know what the choice is yet. Hopefully we'll find out before it appears on the next agenda for the August 19th Board of Supervisors meeting, but forthcoming, we should know who that is, so thank you very much for your interest in that. Tomorrow, there is a DRECP meeting of the MAC subcommittee on the Desert Renewable Energy Conservation Plan. Will meet in the conference room at the county building next to my office at 9 o'clock. And that meeting is a sort of a 10,000-foot meeting. We are looking at how best to make comments on the DRECP document that's coming out at an expected 8 to 10,000 pages. So we want to look at how the public can best make comments on that, make relevant comments, and where to direct those so that they go to the right place. It's not a meeting to talk about individual solar projects or large-scale projects. We know that rooftop is preferred, and we're trying to use our time more as a strategy meeting. So anyone who is interested or not available, please come tomorrow morning. And lastly, just going back to the TV, Rick, you mentioned maybe a possibility of doing away with county special districts television. And you know, my office, I deal with people usually when someone's unhappy with something that the county is doing. That's when my phone starts ringing. And in the 6 or so months that I've been in this job, never before have I received more phone calls than the day Channel 2 went out on the county television broadcast. You wouldn't believe the amount of calls that I received. And don't take away people's TV, they go crazy. Okay, so that's all I have.
Gail Swart from Morongo Valley. And I agree with you, Mike. In Morongo Valley, a lot of people use the translator for their TV service. And and they're very happy with it. And it's really nice not to have to pay extra for a TV, station. So we're happy with that in Morongo Valley. There's a couple things that are coming up. On Thursday the 21st, Spark is having another meeting. What does that acronym stand for again? Does anybody know? Well, it's the county is out here to find out what kind of planning we want in regards to renewable energy. And it was a very good meeting last time, and they're having a meeting again at the Yucca Valley Community Center on the 21st from 6 to 8 p.m. And I would encourage people to go there and let their voice be heard on what they want to see in renewable energy on county, within the county. On Monday, August 25th, the Morongo Valley Fire Station is going to have an open house from 5 to 7:30 p.m. If you know anybody in Morongo Valley, you might let them know that we're going to be open then, and we're going to be talking about our fire department. And we also are having a senior expo on the Thursday, the 21st, from 9 to 11 in Covington Park. And we're going to have a lot of different agencies coming in to tell seniors what there is available in Morongo Valley and throughout the Basin for seniors. So I think that's going to be really beneficial. Thank you.
Mary Helen Tuttle, Copper Mountain Mesa. Lots of good things and a bad thing. We had another record-breaking breakfast the first Saturday of the month, and that is always very inspiring for those of us who slave. What's exciting about it is that we usually close down for the summer, and wow, have we been missing out, anyway, so it was great. We are having a movie night this Saturday. We're going to have the Monolith Monsters showing. I haven't seen it. It's from like the old Godzilla era where, he's talking and then the little Oriental talking after it. Well, anyway, it's some people own these movies and want to make a donation. That'll be great. We're going to have, some popcorn pop, stuff like that. Bring a lawn chair, a blanket, a cooler. It'll just be sort of a community building thing. We also lost a longtime volunteer, And this gentleman, Chris Jonas, I don't know if anybody knows him, he ran the USDA food distribution program as well as the thrift store inside the center, and plus he called bingo and did all kinds of things. Well, we were really concerned because USDA is historically not controlled by the board of directors. However, some of the volunteers did step up to run it, so that basically the programs that Chris took care of and were very important to our center are going to be continued. Some people have stepped up to take it over, so all is well, and that's a good thing. On the homeless front, there is a meeting of the Morongo Basin Haven this Friday at 10 a.m. at the Bob Burke Building. It'll be a really good one. Roy's Desert Resources will be there speaking. Now, I don't know if anybody knows where Roy's is. When you're on the 10 and you're heading east and just before the Indian off-ramp, if you look at the industrial buildings up to the left, you'll see it says Roy's Desert Resource, and it's got I think it's got a cowboy boot and a horseshoe, and I never knew what it was. Well, apparently it's a resource for homelessness and for, I believe, unemployment also down there. So they're going to have a representative at the Bob Burke Building at 10 o'clock this Friday to tell everybody what's going on. Also this Friday, and this is important for everyone who has children, so spread the word, the San Bernardino County is doing a free backpack and school supply handout at the, no? Oh, I'm sorry, Julian, you shook your head and I thought, no, I got that wrong? Sorry, you were just shaking the bugs out. They're having a backpack giveaway, and it's from 9 to 12 at the Sportsman's Club, and they have really nice backpacks that they give out, and they have it chock full of notebooks and pens and pencils and stuff to give to kids. So anybody who has children, please bring them over to the Sportsman's Club and get a backpack for school. That's all I have.
You have a comment?
Quick comment.
Okay. One exception.
The kiosk I brought up at the last meeting was blinding. You called me the next day and said it was being taken care of. The roof on it, because it was bright metal. The roof was painted that day.
Yeah. BLM went out there within 24 hours and painted that. Yes, they did. It was really good. Yeah, appreciated them for doing that. Items for future agenda next month.
Oh, agenda items for next month. Well, we have Captain coming to talk about bullying.
Dale Mondary? Captain Mondary? Good, we'll be here to talk about bullying next month, September. And any other items for next month? Okay, I'm sure we'll have a lot that will appear over the month. Thank you everyone for coming. We want to thank Bob Stevenson. Thank you for recording. You can always find recordings of this meeting under Big Mac and the name of the month. This will be under Big Mac August on YouTube. Thank you, Tim Millington. Thank you for coming in and presenting, even though it's not always, some of the questions were hard. Tim also runs this building, is that right? This is in your purview. So thank you also for the use of the building. It's a great benefit to us. And Rebecca Unger and Dan Stewart, thank you from the press for coming every month and reporting on this. We appreciate the coverage. And Shirley Lyon-Lenquist for taking our minutes. And the folks from 247 Scenic Highway Committee, thank you. Joanne and Betty. Yeah, I got it. Thank you all for coming. We're adjourned.